This has been a Clear Springs Entertainment production. On this episode of Parx-e Trip Across America. For Chris Parke, America is a way of life for him. He loves to go back every chance he can get, to meet new people and to catch up with old friends. So for 5 weeks, he explored America again. And along the way, he interviewed some cool people and explored some cool new cities. From New Zealand to America, watch as he explores America and interviews some cool people. This is Parx-e Trip Across America.
So you're recording a new album at the moment, so how's that coming about?
Oh, it's so good. It's been such a long process. I was originally on tour with the Smashing Pumpkins, 2016, which was my second tour with them, as a bass player, which I'm not as well known as, but it's something I can also do. I'm one of those multi-instrumentalists. But I realized while I was on tour with them, I was gathering all of these new fans, and all these new people were inquiring about my music, and I thought, well, I want to make a new record. I should launch something now. So while I was on that tour, I launched my new fundraising campaign with Pledge Music for that. So it's still ongoing. But I just went into Blackbird Studios here in Nashville in December, and we tracked the bulk of everything and just did a few guitar overdubs in Los Angeles this week. So I'm almost done with the actual recording process. Gonna put some horns on it. There's so much planning has gone into this record, and I wrote so many songs for it too. Sometimes you write like a short amount of songs and you're like, these are the songs, but like I probably went 30-40 songs deep to find the ones that I actually loved, and then rewrote those and then rewrote the rewrites. Yeah, it's been a great process though. I'm really excited about this album.
So how did you get involved with Howard Willing in the first place?
Well, originally he reached out to me while I was still in Australia. I've always been a fan of reading liner notes on albums. I've always wanted to know what makes a song great or an artist great, be it like the songwriting or be it the production itself. So I was aware of his work with artists like Narina Palo and Macy Gray and OK Go and Counting Crows and Sheryl Crow, and like I'd seen his name popping up time and time again, and I'd collected a few producer names, really only 2 or 3, and at the time I'd listed them on my website as a ha-ha, like if anyone knows these people, reach out to me, and he did, and that never happened. That never happens in life. And he said, would you ever come out to Los Angeles, blah, 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 and I did. I jumped a plane on my own dime and went out and ended up tracking what would be my first American EP, that then turned into 2 EPs. That's, a long story, but I had my second trip out to Los Angeles and just moved, realized that I kind of needed to be there, and once being in Los Angeles for X amount of time, realized I needed to be in Nashville and started traveling there, hence why I'm here.
So how have you, this is a good, I'm going to ask this question, how have you found being like in America compared to Australia, because the Australian music scene is so different now from what it was so many years ago, because... Yeah, I really found it a real struggle in Australia to compete in that industry. It was very separated to what was very alternative to what was very pop. And I had more success with side projects and dance music projects. I got those onto radio, and my own stuff just was left to the wayside. None of the radio stations cared, and it wasn't indie enough to be on Triple J. It's very, it's a little bit more supportive now that there's been a few really big breakthrough Australian artists that have broken internationally, like Gautier and so forth. Like people have taken a little bit more of an interest in Australian music, and Wolf Mother and those that have come out of the rock sort of realm as well. But at the time when I was living there before I moved, I kind of knew that it wasn't I was in the wrong country. But as soon as I moved to America, I realized that those people that I'd read in line notes and producers and artists that I'd aspired to work with or to be like or to emulate or model from,
they were just people living in this same city, and things were really achievable. Even though it's a big city with way more competition, there's also way more opportunity and different avenues, different people trying to do different things. And even in cities like Nashville, I've learned to understand that all these different things, there's country music, indie music, rock music, they all creatively compete together. It's a really wonderful, diverse country to be in. I'm excited that I've been able to see all these different cities too, and see what they have to offer, and they're all wildly different with their own cultures. In Australia, more so, like you go from Melbourne to Sydney and there's a little bit of a culture change, but it's not really that different. Whereas you go from LA to New York and it's a totally different animal. And I've been lucky enough to see so many different cities around America and eat all the different foods. That's another thing about America. The food, like especially like the southern food and the fried food and all the good stuff. Like you get to try all this weird stuff, but it changes how you see how people grow up. The culture also comes with the food, the lifestyle, the weather, all these different things. It's just America's very different.
So you've obviously found that, because you were living in LA for a while, to Nashville, the Nashville people are probably a bit more accommodating. Would that be a fair way to say it? Or?
Yeah, the two words that I learnt very quickly that coincide with Nashville are inclusive and collaborative, and that I worked out straight away. And then my very first trip to Nashville, when I was living in Los Angeles, I came out for a writing trip for, I think it was 8 or 10 days, and I played 4 or 5 shows. I wrote 5 or 6 songs. I had so many people asking me on my first trip, when are you moving here? Or welcome home, welcome to Nashville. If you ever need a place to stay, People are just very welcoming, and I don't know, that whole Southern hospitality thing is real. It's not just a word. People care. Like, I know my neighbors here. I never knew my neighbors in Los Angeles, but I know my neighbors in Nashville. It's just people talk. They're a lot more friendly, and there's a sense of community. And I think because so many people are creative that move to Nashville, I mean, much like Los Angeles, not a lot of people are born and raised in Nashville. They move to Nashville from other cities, but a lot of people are here on a common goal, a common creative thread. So, I don't know, there's a lot more understanding of why you're here.
So I might launch this question. So, Smashing Pumpkins, how did you get involved in that?
I know, it's such a wild thing. People ask me that all the time. They're like, not just how, but like how? We share the same record producer, Howard Willing. He'd worked with them right through their early days in the 90s. He worked with them on Machina and Adore and some of the way early 90s records, and he's maintained working with them on their later records too. And so Billy Corgan was aware of who I was as an artist through that connection, and he said to me, I think it was 2014, he asked me if I wanted to open up a show with him in Chicago at a place called Ravinia Pavilion, which is kind of like a big outdoor sort of theater, really big venue. And I was like, yes, of course, yes. So that was my introduction to sort of working with them. And then about a year later, Billy was putting together a tour, and what he wanted to call an acoustic electro tour, which was called the In Plain Song Tour. There was going to be a very varied show, from playing solo stuff to duo stuff with the guitarist to he was going to originally bring in a drummer on that one and a bass player, and just go through the different albums and play different sections of different eras. And he asked me if I wanted to be involved with that. He asked me if I wanted to open up those shows. And then it became, do you want to open up these shows and also play some bass on some songs during our sets too? And I was like, yeah. And then I worked out, hey, I'm not particularly a bass player, but I can play bass. So I had a really long learning curve on learning the songs and the complexity involved in those songs, because he's quite an accomplished songwriter. Everybody knows that. And being such a huge fan of them, and growing up when I was, in early teens playing in cover bands, I was covering those songs. So it's just a real trip at first. And then asked me again the next year when they were putting together the second leg of the In Plain Song tour if I wanted to be involved with that. Again, playing bass. I didn't open up those shows. Liz Fair did, so fair enough, cool. It's Liz Fair.
That's
so
cool.
That's cool. So obviously got to hang with her too, and she's a sweetheart. And we ended up singing some songs on stage with her too, because she's great. But just a really, he's got a very close-knit family of musicians that he likes to work with, and he has, he puts a lot of faith in musicians, and I think I took it as a huge compliment when he asked me to come back and play the second leg of the tour. Like, oh, you can do this, you're great, let's get you back to do this, because he has his pick of any musician that he wants to ask, he's going to say yes. I was very excited to do that, but I'm still in communication with him. He was in Nashville to track some stuff recently, and I came out to listen to some of those songs. And
cool.
We're still in contact. I'm one of the lucky few that gets to be a fly on the wall of his world and his accomplishments.
That's great.
Yeah.
So one of the big things is that we're going to talk about this week is first we'll talk about how social media must play a huge part in what you do and get engaged in your audience and get a new fan base and connecting with your fans.
Well, it's a huge role. It's taken me a couple of years to understand it, embrace it, reject it, embrace it, evolve what I do to show people a window into my world, not show them too much, but show them a piece of my world. I'm a very private person, so things that I share are things that I specifically want to share. I mean, I've kind of moved away from, here's a picture of my food, but I find it to be a most, I suppose, it's an uncontrollable, welcoming window to new fans, and stumble across this fan, people stumble across what you do via this, or searching a hashtag. People may search, Smashing Pumpkins, and stumble across me and be led to my music. And I've had so many weird and wonderful things happen via social media because of these. Really, it's just a wealth of opportunity, but it's such an ocean out there to swim through because everybody's posting everything about everything, and everybody's taking the best photo of the thing that is the most important thing ever. So putting out unique content is really important, and putting out content that really represents you and what you stand for or what you're trying to achieve, and finding meaningful communication with people. I started putting out a Tuesday series that I call Tuesday, which is just my self-embraced version of learning like classic, cover songs that I've never learnt before, and I learn them on the spot, play them, record them, post them, done. I don't overthink them, I don't learn them particularly well, so they're not really the best version of the song, but it's just a challenge to show people my version of this song and give people new content that they can latch onto, that is familiar to them. I find social media to be a real challenge because you can also get lost in looking at what every other artist is doing and go, why aren't I doing that? Or why is this, or why is this? And it's finding your own relationship with social media. Try to communicate and acknowledge what everybody's saying to me, but also not get caught up in it at the same time. It's a very strange balance that I think every artist has to choose what they are comfortable with. For me, it's not too much personal stuff, more business stuff and random opinions and random things that just happen to me, but just to show people here's a bit of a window into my world with a little bit of mystery still.
So the big thing is the Me Too movement. How do you feel about that? How do you think it's changed? How it's changed for both musicians and actors?
It's a very big deal. I mean, I've always been an advocate for women. I went as far to write an article for Performer magazine that was about my own struggles as being a woman in the industry, and I didn't go right into the, any sort of sexual harassment side of things, but I think it comes with the territory. Most women in music or entertainment have experienced some level of either harassment or sexual harassment. it comes with the territory, and that's a really unfortunate thing to say. We've all dealt with it. I think it's changing to the perspective now that women actually have a little bit of an upper hand. I've never been so shocked to see men of power just stripped from their ranking. You know, in America, having like Matt Lauer taken off the anchor from the Today Show was just like, people were like, what? Same with Charlie Rose, like watching CBS in the morning, which I do in America. I mean, I now watch Morning Joe and a bunch of other things that are American shows, but I like to get my news and politics. I like to be fed from all different sides of things, but to see some of these men of power that living in America for a few years, you start to understand the importance that they have played over the years, because they've been staples in people's lives for decades. Like, you turn on the TV and you see this particular person of power or interest, and to find out there's a shady backstory behind this, and that they're just as human and as semi-predatory as other men out there, it's a real shame. I've never seen so many women stand up and say, yes, this happened to me. There is obviously room to play devil's advocate for women to step in and take advantage of that, but I don't think the majority of women don't actually want to make themselves known or be famous or take advantage of a situation like that, because there isn't much gain for that. You're going to be found out to be a liar. There's not much gain for that. So most women that come forward are being honest about their own experiences, and they still may be muted and editing their story to not tell everyone all the gross things that have happened to them. I mean, I've barely listed half the things that have happened to me. I've only listed one story publicly on social media of some harassment that happened to me, but everyone's got stories of things that are just horrific, and I think this is a turning point for people to realize that there are real consequences, that even people like, as I said, Matt Lauer and Charlie Rose can just be wiped, like their history and what they represented can just be wiped clean with accusations and revelations of these terrible things that they've done. People have to be really careful.
I've got two more questions for you. So what do you hope people will get out of the album when it comes out? Oh,
the album. This particular album, I've never delved so far into the other side of the fence. I've always kind of tried to stay in the really positive mind frame and the best side of the situation, and rarely have I delved into the reality of every level of a situation, and I kind of I went there. In parentheses, I went there. So this album talks about heartbreak, loss, abuse, suicide, alcoholism. I've gone to every capacity as a songwriter to challenge myself to cover things that are potentially uncomfortable, to cover things that I've avoided talking about or that I've experienced, to cover things that I think tell people's story through my own story. I just really wanted to make an album that I can look back at these songs and go, wow, I don't regret one line. And I've done that with, every album you're like, oh, everything feels like a work in progress. Still, even if it's out, you still look back and you're like, oh, this song or that song shouldn't have been there. And I really don't feel that way. I put so much planning into this. Like, there's been a year and a half of songwriting, rewriting, planning, arrangement, song structure, planning the song references I'm using per song. Like, I never went that in depth before. It was always just like, let's, generally this, and let's have this particular guitarist or keyboard player do this, and this. This has been a process of doing less and being really specific. So I'm just hoping people see a different side of what I'm doing. This is a lot more raw. This is a lot more edgy.
Cool. So my last question is something I've been asking everybody as part of my gimmick part of the video. Have you ever bought an as seen on TV product before?
No, I haven't. I bought a t-shirt for somebody once that ended up being off a site, but it's not because I saw it on TV. It was the only place I could buy it from. But no, I've never bought anything from that, and there's a lot of that here in America. It's pretty funny. Everything is a gadget for something, but no, I haven't.
Fantastic.
Kinda like
like a knife sticking out of my back, warm and smooth like a shot of Jack. One beat shy of a heart attack, but I'll keep on running. Closing in on a long cold night, neath the glow of a neon light.
This has been a Clear Springs Entertainment production. Thanks for watching.